And I'm just going to welcome everybody to NJZL's PD event. We've got the amazing Dustin Hensley, who's going to be sharing with us tonight on tips for getting grants. He is amazing. I mean, he's an amazing person in general, but he's also amazing at grants. So very excited to have him here. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over. Dustin, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be with you all tonight. I will say that I have never stopped my car in New Jersey. I have driven through New Jersey before. I would really like to visit New Jersey. Two of my coworkers are from New Jersey, and one of them told me, "Is like, make sure that when you're talking to them, that you say that it's Taylor ham sandwiches," and the other said, "No, it's pork roll."
Yeah, you will find yourself in the middle of a civil war if you come.
I did. I did not know which one I should come prepared to talk about, the Taylor ham roll or the pork roll. So both, I'm a fan of both. So big ups for Taylor ham and pork rolls. Um, but yeah, I'm going to share my screen here, which it will not work unless you say that I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so. And I'm also so old that I forget how slide works compared to photo or PowerPoint. So I'll just start staring at it like this isn't PowerPoint. Um, but you all can see. All right, that also has to be asked before you can start. Um, so we're going to talk about writing grants. And again, I am Dustin Hensley. I'm the librarian at Elizabethton High School in Elizabethton, Tennessee. I'm hoping that it wasn't too evident that I'm from Tennessee by listening to me. I know that my accent probably sounds pretty thick, but I'm hoping that this does not require subtitles for you to be able to understand what I'm saying. In addition to being the librarian at Elizabethton High School, I'm also an adjunct professor at East Tennessee State University in the Master's of School Librarianship program. There, I help the students who are initial licensure students who don't have teaching license. So I work with them to get them through their what's called EdTPA to get their teaching license. I am this year's president of the Tennessee Association of School Librarians, which is also a very huge honor. They must have been desperate in finding anyone to do it if they asked me. So I've truly enjoyed getting to be that. It's, like I said, an honor. And as a reader, I think it's always important as a librarian to talk about your reading. So I am an avid reader. I just down there from North Jersey, Taylor Ham. Boom, debate settled. But as a reader, I enjoy reading horror, history, and manga, which might sound like a strange combination, but I read horror every day in some sort. It is my forever genre. It's hard for me to get away from it, but I've been a manga reader for my whole life. Grew up reading manga, so I felt like I was ahead of the curve whenever the manga fad hit a couple of years ago, because I've been reading it for good decades at that point. So that was always cool. And my bachelor's degree is in history, so I kind of, that's my fallback option is always history. So there we go. So as a grant writer, I originally started writing grants as a side job for a county school district that I was working in. I was working part-time in the after-school program at a middle school in the district, and they saw what I was doing and saw like I was a literature minor in college and such. So they saw my writing skills and such and said, "Hey, we think you would be good at grant writing." So they kind of just set me loose and let me start writing grants on behalf of the county, which for a 22-year-old I thought was super cool. He's like, here, go get us a bunch of money. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth in grant writing is they said, oh, here's, which we'll talk about later, but here are like our accountability measures and such. Make it sound good. Um, so whenever I moved to my current job at Elizabethton High School in 2015, I wanted to bring that grant writing with me. I thought that that would be really helpful in my library that I work in. And the school building that I'm in was built in 1973, and everything in the library was still original to the building whenever I got there in 2015. So everything was 41 years old. The furniture, the carpet, everything. It was rough. Um, The carpet I was afraid would give me the black lung. Like I wasn't sure. It just looked pretty bad. So I talked to my principal, maybe like a week in, like, hey, do you think it's in the budget to replace all this stuff? Obviously, it wasn't. So I was like, I know what to do. I'm going to find a grant to replace all this. So I used one of the grant databases that I'm going to show you later on in the talk. I was able to find something called the XQ Super School Grant, which the purpose of that grant, it was a competition to rethink high school and what it should be for the next 100 years. So me, two other teachers, and 23 students wrote this grant application, ended up winning over $2 million to like transform our school, which was super cool. So I've gotten to be part of this like crazy wild experience for the past 8 years with that group. It was funded by Lorraine Powell Jobs, who was Steve Jobs' widow. Um, so I've gotten to meet and shake hands with a billionaire, so that's pretty cool. Famous librarians shaking hands with billionaires. Um, so because of things like that and the grants that I've written, after that, I ended up the school like has officially made me the grant writer for the school, and I'm also the grant writer for my school district at this point. Um, that was never made official; it just became a thing. Like I get emails from central office and our school board. They're like, "Hey, this is a grant I found. Can you write this?" Um, so I guess that's part of my job now. That's the other duties as assigned, I
I was going
believe.
to say, I feel like that's sort of like the librarian just sort of seems to collect whatever else is on the plates.
Yes, that's the way it works. There was actually a joke at work today that our athletic director is leaving. So someone said, just give it to Dustin. He does everything else. Let him be over sports. So that's the way it works for librarians. But I have been able to get over $3 million in grants over the past 10 years. So I'm really proud of that number. I've it's really cool to be able to see how much change that's brought about um, in my library, but also across the whole school. Because not all $3 million of that has gone to my school library. That's not the way that's worked, unfortunately. That'd be a pretty wild library. I'd have like an upstairs and everything. But at $3 million for the school that I work at, I've been able to receive. So it's been really cool to see all the changes and that just writing these proposals have brought about for my coworkers and all of the students who get to benefit from it. So, hey, let's talk grants. So, we know best thing about grants is free money. And I don't know about you, but in my experience in life, that whenever like I get something or I eat something, if someone else bought it for me, oh man, it tastes so much better. Free food's so good, right? Free money's the same way. If I get something new in the library and someone else paid for it, oh man, this reads so much better. Like, oh, that lamp has such better lighting in it. That's just the way it feels when it comes free, right? Someone else's money. So what that creates is budget flexibility. That if I want this, but my budget doesn't allow it, then you can start moving things around. Um, that lets your budget stretch out so much further if you're able to get this program over here paid for with that grant funding. So this thing can happen instead. Or I can use my budget that I have. I don't, schools are different. Some allow for budgets to roll over to the next year, some don't. Mine doesn't. Um, but maybe you could save money this year to that year and use this grant funding to pay for this yearly uh, um, fund, whatever it is. So it really helps with budget flexibility. Opens up so many possibilities for new programs. All of us have things that we want to offer that we just don't know how. That if I had money, then this would happen, or I could do this if. And that's what grants really help open up that possibility of that thing we've always wanted to do. Um, and then also, I alluded to this a second ago, but it gives us a seat at the table. That librarians were always one of one in the building. I mean, often we are, unless you're in a very large school that requires multiple librarians, but not always are librarians sought out by administration for their thoughts on things. Um, I know that I've been in a position as a librarian where I wasn't really like, hey, Dustin, I know you're the librarian. What do you think about these changes at the administrative level? That's not necessarily the things that happen to me being in my career. But once I started winning money for the library and the school wanted money for the rest of the school as well, it opened me up to being part of discussions across the whole school. So it helped get me into I'm still a librarian, I'm not an administrator, but I'm in a leadership position now in the school officially that I'm part of those discussions about whole school curriculum and things like that. So it really bought me a seat at the table, pun intended, and buying me a seat at the table, that being able to present money to the school helped give me a position where I can advocate for the library and its needs better than I did before. Right. So the two types of grants that I work in are government discretionary and organization. So the government discretionary, that's any kind of money that you get from the federal, state, or local level. Usually those will come in, the state or local ones a lot of times will come from things called federal block grants, where the federal government will give money to the smaller, like state. The state will give to local. And then you were in some type of competition with other schools or other municipalities or whatever, to get this money from the government. And what those kind of grants are looking for are generally different from what organizations from charities and businesses look like. So I'm going to look over theirs in just a second. But I have worked on both of these kinds of grants. I have written a lot of government discretionary grants, and I've written a lot of grants to different types of organizations. Um, so in your applications, they're looking for very different things, and how you write them very different as well. All right. So if you do plan on writing some grants, these are very important numbers to always have with you. So some of these, like the school tax ID number, it was like a government secret for me to be able to get it at first, until I kept asking for it so much. They finally wrote it on a piece of paper and said, "Put this in your desk in the part that locks, and keep this and stop asking for it." So I got that part, and that was nice. And I was given access at our student information program, where I can look up our school population, demographics, all of that. I can look that up in our system Skyward on my own. They give me admin access for that because I kept asking for it. Um, but these are numbers that you'll need to have for generally any grant that's library specific that you're writing for, especially if you're writing for a government grant, which is funny because the government already has your tax ID number, but they want you to give it to them again. But that is information that you really need to have and be prepared to list for anything you're writing for. All right. So government grants, they're looking for very fact-based, data-driven results. That is what they want you to tell them about, and money from the government. Um, so they're looking for you to tell them exactly how you're going to be accountable for the money that they're giving you. So they want to know, like, down to the penny, how are you spending these funds? Like, I've gotten money from the government for like very low amounts. I've gotten it from very like tens of thousands of dollars from the government. And they want to know, in your budget, detail this. Tell me every single thing you're going to buy, where you're going to buy it from. Like, they want to know very specific. Um, and they have a lot of progress monitoring, as in, tell us when you're going to show how you're being accountable and when you're going to do it. So if they give you $10,000, they want to know, if you're spending this $10,000 over 2 years, then are you going to tell us quarterly how things are going? And how are you going to prove to us that you're doing your program well? So what accountability measures are you creating for yourself? This is when we start to talk about like SMART goals and all that stuff. Like, that's what they're looking for, is making sure that you are going to be a good steward of their money, because it's taxpayer money. Like, it's good that they are being very, um, that they're judging harshly, to make sure that you're using the money well. Um, and they usually want you to work through your central office. That you might be writing the grant specifically for your library, but they want a sign off from someone at central office, which is usually your head of accounting or CFO, or however your district is set up. They would want that person just to get a signature on there to say that we are okay with taking in this money and allowing the person in the library to use it. and make sure that you talk to your building for any grant. I probably should have prefaced this. For any grant you're writing, it's really good to talk to your administration first before you write um, a grant. Just let them know, hey, we might be bringing money into the school, just so they know for the bookkeeping perspective how that would get put in accounts and all that. On the nonprofit slash business grants, um, something that I tell people is to make sure that you research the organization. So if it is a grant from Cheerios, then you better believe you need to go on their website and research everything about them. Look at their mission and vision statements. Look at other projects that they have given money to in the past. I don't want to be jaded, but I also don't want to be naive. And the reason that these businesses are giving grants is because they're wanting to use you for public relations. They want to make themselves look good by what they've given to you. So there's a fine line that you have to walk, that you have to demonstrate that if I got this money, I would accomplish something really good with it. But at the same time, I really need this money, because you don't want them to think that you don't need it because you're so awesome. So you don't want to build yourself up too high in your application. But at the same time, you got to show them, like, hey, um, we were able to take this school library that was here, and we brought them up to here. Like, we really helped bring them up and did something for that community. So this is much more like emotion driven compared to the government grants. So they really want you to be able to tell a story, tell a narrative to them about how this would affect your community. That these students that we have in the library, uh, that they're the population is this, and they have a lack of resources, and our public library is so many miles away, and whatever you need to say to be able to say, if we had the money from you, we could provide this program in the library, and their reading scores would go this high or whatever kind of thing, so that they feel really good and they can brag about it. But something that I have done is I have researched previous winners of grants, and I have emailed and called them to ask them about their applications. Um, Generally, if you email somebody, they're pretty cool about it. If you just cold call somebody, not as happy about it. I still do it, but it's because I want the money. Um, and I'm pretty competitive about it. So I will call out previous winners, and they're usually pretty nice about it, and will be pretty straight up and say, "Hey, when I wrote my application, this is what happened. This was the spin we went on it, things like that." So a lot of these websites will like it'll show, here's last year's winners, and here was their project with a very small summary. Research those, and if possible, find out who the people were. Reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm applying for the same grant. Do you mind to give my application a look over? Or do you mind to give me suggestions?" That kind of thing. They're usually pretty open to it. Um, Also, letters of support are fantastic to include. They're not always required, but if you can include them, they're very beneficial. So if you have a community partner that you work with a lot, it's really good to have them write an application or a letter of support, or a parent. Maybe they come to your parent programs, or maybe they just have a student who is really involved. Having a student write a letter is awesome. There are very few grants that I've written that did not include a student letter of support. I want them to know from the student perspective that if we had this in our library, it could do this for them and their classmates.
Not
So
long ago, somebody was telling me that when you can get the students, get the big puppy dog eyes and make the board say no to them. And that's, yeah, I can't remember if that was you that was telling me that or if it was somebody else, but that was, I thought, a great piece of advice.
yeah, we did talk about that. So it is anytime you can get the students involved, because one is for them. Like, they're the purpose of all of it. The money that I've got for all the grants that I've written is so the students can have better, right? Like, that's our whole point. It's not so I can say, look at this money I got, because what does that help? So yeah, getting students involved, one, helps your application look better, but two, that's the point, right? Is that we want students, and it teaches them a skill that you can advocate for yourself and your needs and the needs of your community. So it win, 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 I say. Um, Something I forgot to mention in the government one, I'm going to pass it right back here, is that every government grant will be assigned a grant officer, and it will give their email and their phone number. Reach out to that person. If you are not sure if what you want to do fits in the mold of that grant, just call the grant officer and ask them. That's what they're there for. And they're really, I've never had a grant officer be annoyed or aggravated by my 1,000 questions before. So they're generally really good about just helping you understand. Um, so if there is a government grant, like through, I've gotten one through the National Endowment for Humanities before, and that was government grant. Um, and I've applied through IMLS before. That's government grant. So we have like library specific grants that we can apply for through the government. So look for those grant officers. Generally good people, I think. All right. So here are a couple grant websites, and I got on there an Excel sheet from our good friend Amanda Jones. Um, but I'm going to pull out and look at a couple of these. So Mackin has several grants on here on theirs, which has not been updated recently. So a couple of these have rolled off in their offerings, but I did want to show you the Believe in Reading one. The contact us got switched. But if you just looked at grant guidelines here, it'll give you all the information for a around $3,000 book grant for different types of programs in your library. So I was actually just looking over Mackin earlier today as I was going back through this, and this is a new one they've added. So I've not seen this one before. So I'm very tempted. Um, but yeah, on here, it just tells you the name of the foundation or who the grantor is, and it gives you the details. And a lot of times it will tell us when the deadline is. So generally, grants like these happen every year, and then we'll have a certain cutoff date for when applications are due. Um, so usually it'll tell us that, but these have all been moved out here. The Kinder Morgan Foundation has a deadline of every month, so those are good to go through. My favorite grant database is from DIMCO. So if you've never seen DIMCO's grant database, it is fantastic. So this is actually where I found the XQ Super School grant in, was on the grant database for DIMCO. So I've already filled out the information here. Like you put your email, what state you're in, first, last name, organization, and you pick if you're public, private, or higher ed. And then you can pick from a couple different categories of what kind of grants you're looking for. Hit search, and it will do this to you. That's new. That's good timing. Um, maybe. Well, it is. Oh, anyways, if you do DIMCO's, that's great timing. If you do DIMCO's grant database, it's fantastic. I had just done a mock one right before this started, and it pulled up $33 million worth of grants on there. And it tells you when the deadline is. They were as soon as this Friday cutoff dates through next year. So I generally keep tabs on the DIMCO database pretty regularly to see if anything new's been added or what I could get for me or my co-teachers. The co-teachers ask for grant help a lot, especially technology wise. Um, but I have accidentally stumbled upon a cheat code. I found that there is a organization for people who give out grant money for schools, and it's called Grant Makers for Education. So this is like a group that has conferences and everything, which is pretty cool. But they have a page that shows all of their members. So these are all of the organizations that will give money to schools for grants. And you can even click them. So it's fun to get, and which not all of these are ones you could apply to. Like right here was a DC Public Education Fund. You can't you live in New Jersey, you can't get that DC public school money. But there's a lot of these who you can click and it'll show all of the money that they give to schools. Not all of them, like I said, are applicable, but quite a few of them are. Um, and this is a massive list. Part of me feels guilty that they signed up for this group to get like help and assistance, and now that I'm just telling people to go look at this website and like track them down. But I like to think that it's pretty beneficial. I went through quite a few of them, just poking around to see what's available. Um, so definitely give when you have a spare hour, if you can find one. This is a fun deep dive you can do to see if there are any that currently have grants available that would be applicable for you. And then our good friend Amanda Jones has a Excel sheet because she's much more organized than I am, with a lot of different grants. Also with Amanda needs to update some of hers. She's got some 2022 dates. Um, but yeah, she's done quite a bit of work on organizing that as well. And I'll send Steve the PowerPoint for this or the slide deck so that you can actually have these to click through. And such a oh, and also Walmart and Lowe's, which everybody has Walmart and Lowe's around their schools, right? Pretty close usually. Ours are thankfully across the road, like literally from the front of my school, I can see Lowe's. So that's very convenient. Um, So I've gotten money through both Walmart and Lowe's on multiple occasions. They have online applications now that you can, which no, Walmart has an online application. Lowe's still wants you to go to their in store and work with your the manager of your local store to do an application together. But I have gotten so much money from Walmart that at one point they told me, like, they called the school and said, please tell Dustin to stop calling us, because I had gotten so much money. And what happened was the students in my community improvement class were getting so much free stuff from Walmart that they finally cut me off until the year was over. Then I started again. But Walmart has, I'll go ahead and click it. Walmart has a new system for you to request funding for. So I think it's up to, yeah, it's up to $5,000 now. Um, and the grant cycle is currently open. So be sure to put in some money now for next school year. Seems that way. Yep. So it's March 1st through July 15th. So if you want to start off next school year with some funding from Walmart, now would be the time to put it in. The cutoff is July 15th. So you would get that money by the start of school. So that would be great. I need to do that myself. And then Lowe's does some cool stuff. All right, we're moving on. I didn't mean to do that. But here are a couple of grants that I have gotten over the last few years that I want to talk about. So this was a humanities grant for libraries that was ran through ALA, but the funding was through the National Endowment for Humanities. Um, so I wrote a grant for it to be able to hire two students who just graduated over the summer to be interns, for us to research um, desegregation in our city. So in 1964, the Douglas School was the school for African American students in our community. All those students were moved to Elizabethton High School. So we had none of the history preserved from the Douglas School. So we went into the community of like where Douglas was and did interviews and did a lot of research, did a lot of cultural interviews. So that was a lot of fun. We were able to get a lot of recorded interviews to preserve in our city archives and in our school archives as well. Um, and if you notice, my two interns, this one, the girl on the far left, and then the the kid with the mustache and the ball cap. That was my two student interns. And if you think through it, we are researching African American history. And I had two white students and white me who were doing it. So we tried to work hard to understand our place and what we were doing, understanding that we are trying to enter into a community and say that we are going to preserve your history for you. Um, we try to do a lot of work in understanding the culture and building a connection with the people of the community. Um, so that was a truly enjoyable experience, a big learning experience. I think it was really good for the students as well. Um, they got to work for the coolest boss ever. I like to think their librarian. Can you imagine your first boss being the school librarian? That was sweet. Um, but no, that was awesome, and I felt like that was a good return on investment for the funding that we got. Is that we got to create that digital archive with all this history that was close to being lost. So that was for $10,000 is what we had. No. Okay. So Julie Stivers, last year's School Library Journal, School Librarian of the Year, amazing person. She did something called a fair book fair. All of us remember, which I remember book fairs from being a kid, and I loved book fair. And I like to think that I was the Ric Flair of the book fair, just coming in, like, with like my $3 to come to buy a boxcar children book or something. Um, and I was talking like she's been doing that for years, and it's always lived in my head that it's something I wanted to do because she does it for free. That every kid gets a free book, because in a library we should never charge for anything. Um, so I've always loved that idea. I just never had it in the course where I could do it. Um, so that's lived back there. And then I was talking with our freshman intro course, and I was talking to them about like we were just talking about everything, and then we started talking about the library. I'm like, what do you think would make people like the library more? And they brought up book fairs. They're like, oh, we loved book fairs in elementary school. Like they were so much fun. They were so cool, and we got excited about it. We should do that here. So I told them like, well, do you think libraries are a great place to spend money? And we started to have a conversation. Um, so you can see there on the board on the right part, we started thinking out the raise money for books, book donations, then we started up book fair. So thankfully I was able to write a Dollar General literacy grant to pay to get books. I was not able to get enough books for everyone in the whole school, but I did get enough for every freshman and sophomore to get a free book. So that was about 450 books we got for that. So that was pretty awesome. Um, did that in the fall of uh, 22, and kids have begged for it to come back ever since. They're in fall 22. They're saying, "Can we do it in the spring semester?" I'm like, "I don't have the money for that. We'll do it next school year." So they wouldn't leave me alone all of fall 23. So I was able to, which I have ran out. You can only get Dollar General literacy grant so many times, and I have exhausted my ability to get that grant. So I thankfully was able to get um, the Kiwanis Club, which is a local civics club. They have donated the amount for me to get enough books for freshman and sophomore again. So hopefully this is something we'll get to do every year with funding from an outside partner to take care of that. So I had to do like an application for them to do like um, for me to be their like community project this time. So I was very happy about that. Kids loved it. You know how kids get when there's free books involved. Um, I was like, you only get one, but they were trying to like stuff their jackets like multiple books. I'm like, I love what you're doing, but no, everyone needs one. I'm so sorry. So hopefully this time, everyone will be happy and books everywhere, and we'll all be good. Um, okay, so this was I applied for another grant from the National Endowment for Humanities, and it was a huge failure. So I'm telling you this just to say that I on the title for this is like the grant guru or whatever. Like I bomb at so many grant applications. I wanted to tell you all that I do not get every grant I apply for. That is far from the truth. I get so many denial letters and emails. Um, so I put so much work and effort into this. Um, we my city, which is just a tiny little town in Appalachia, um, we were the first non-European, like non-English or non-French, whatever, um, autonomous collective government in America. So like we weren't from the British Kingdom or the French Kingdom, whatever. We were settlers who developed our own government with our own treaty and everything. So we were the first in America to have that. Um, so we have like a bunch of stuff for that here, and we were going to create a virtual experience that told the history of the settlers and the natives, and was able to kind of explain like what that relationship was like for them, and give a lot of perspective of the native side of it. Um, so I was working with university professors. I had multiple professors from multiple universities signed on to do this. I had so many students. I had grad students. Like I had this so much going on. Um, and then ended up that the application fell apart before I even got it submitted. It was just so much work and so many things. And because it was for $350,000. And the student who was shown there, Veronica, she was like the brains behind of the actual VR creation. Um, she was going to school for computer science. She wrote the computer science curriculum for our university summer school program when she was in middle school. Like savant kid. She's incredible. But she was graduating. So by the time the application will be finished, she would actually be gone to college. It's like, oh gosh, what's happening? I can't create VR. I don't know what's happening. And everything just blew up in my face. I thought I had something amazing going on. The state park that I was working with, I was creating this for the state park. I had to go tell them, I'm sorry, I messed up. I can't do what I thought I was going to be able to do for you. I had to go back and tell the universities a bit of more than I can chew. So I shot really high. I take regular moon shots and I missed the moon by like light years. It was bad. So just putting it out there that I tried so hard, failed even harder. Um, Currently, right now, I'm working on something called the Learning Landscapes Challenge. It is a national competition to rethink K-12 to develop pathways for utilizing infrastructure to meet unmet learning needs. Infrastructure, not necessarily just like building infrastructure, but transportation, technology, like all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to work on an application for that with a couple university partners of how could we create learning pathways for small town rural students who don't have those kind of large networks that they can like attach to. So that is something I'm currently working on. It is up to $700,000, which is pretty awesome. It's from the Walton family and the Siegel family foundations. I haven't researched the Siegel family foundation very much yet, but I think I know who the Walton family is. That's the Walmart people. So that's been some work recently. My principal gave me the go ahead on it, so that's some work.
I don't want to derail, but I'm just really curious. Like, can you talk a little bit about what infrastructure you're thinking about in terms of?
Yeah, yeah. So an issue that we have in our area, specifically like at the high school level, is that we want every student to have some type of work-based learning or internship experience. We have 250 seniors in our senior class every year. There are not enough jobs that we can get students to with transportation on a daily basis or even a weekly basis for them to get the experience that they need. Um, so how can we create some type of online program or something to where students still get legitimate experience that'll help them thrive post high school while in this kind of area? Because again, we don't have a very deep well that we can draw from. We have a couple big employers, but that's way bigger than any of them can handle. Um, Especially if we're wanting to be internship or work-based learning experiences based off of what they want to do as a career. We can't send every kid we have to the Snap-on factory down the road that makes craftsman tools, right? Like not every kid wants to do that, or that would be beneficial for them on a long-term basis. So trying to figure out, could we utilize badging of some sort and develop online pathways to connect to maybe they have an outside work-based learning experience on a shorter term basis or something like that. So that's what we're trying to figure out is what will the application look like? Like how could we rethink this if we had funding to help this or remove that barrier or whatever? So a lot of parts that we have to figure out how they move, and then working with the college partners to figure out um, what skills do you think kids need to be better in college, but also how can college rethink what students need to get admitted. So is the admissions process what it should be for kids to be like successful coming in? Um, so it's a lot of theoretical stuff right now because they're berries for a reason, right? We've no one's ever figured out how to do it. We don't know how to bus 250 kids every day to learn work-based learning sites.
That's interesting. I mean, it's funny because as you're kind of setting the stage for this and talk about how you've got these students who are sort of geographically isolated in a way and trying to connect them with further away opportunities, my mind immediately goes to the school library PLN, that like you might be the only school librarian in your school. So we stretch out and we find each other in these other places and we work together in a lot of different ways. And we put things on together. We get people from different states to talk to each other. Like,
Yeah.
hmm, man, sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
derail.
no,
It's such
no,
an interesting project and such a difficult one, especially for when you're talking about high school students getting skills they might not otherwise get. Hmm.
yeah, and a part of it that I focus on anytime that we talk about preparing for work is preparing for life as a human. Like that's the most important part for me. Like I tell kids that, and I don't want to go too far off the grant part, but hey, I want you to be a human that's good to other people. Like that's the most important part of life, right? Like your career doesn't define you. So like how do we give kids those skills too? Like those skills are super important. I think more important than being able to do a specific job skill. So how do we tie that into your work-based learning opportunity or whatever it might be?
Yeah, even and again, that kind of comes back to that idea of forming community and whatever that looks like. You're if you're taking part in it and if you're a contributing member of that community, you you kind of learn that you need to work with people. Like you can't just assume that you're gonna be able to do it on your own, and that maybe you start to see that there are a lot of benefits to working with other people and not just trying to do it on your own.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
could, you and I could probably talk about this all night, but I'm going to stop derailing the conversation. But this is a really fascinating project.
No, it definitely is. Yeah, more to come um, on that specifically. But hey, final advice. We are. I didn't realize I was talking this long already. But don't get discouraged. Like I said, I have failed at so many grants. A lot of times we will spend, hours working on a grant application. It comes back and says that we didn't get it. And that's so discouraging. I understand because you spend all that time working on it because you want your kids to have it so bad. Um, that's why I write every grant that I write, because I want my kids to have it. I'm happy that someone else's kids got it. I want my kids to have it. Like I'm talking to you all tonight because I want your kids to have it too. Um, but don't let that defeat you. It's okay. I keep putting the work in. Something that you can do if you don't get a grant, that sometimes that they will do for you is that you can contact the people that you wrote the grant for and ask them how they scored your application. Say like, hey, what advice would you give me moving forward if I tried again? What would you say for me to do? Would you mind to show me my score on the rubric? And sometimes they'll do that. One time I wrote a grant, it was a government grant, and they showed me, like they sent me the rubric and their handwritten notes and everything on how they scored me and how I should do better. So that was really beneficial. So yeah, don't get discouraged, don't get defeated. It's worth pushing through and doing more. Stay organized, like you saw in Amanda Jones's Excel spreadsheet. Um, I am awful with having too many tabs open. Like I have all of the tabs all of the time. So I will I'll keep a browser specifically for grants specific stuff. So all of my grant searches or all of my research for a specific grant that I'm writing, like that'll have its own browser. Like Google Chrome is dedicated to grants. Like that is its own thing. Firefox for other stuff. This is a Google Chrome thing. Um, and then just continue looking for other methods for funding donations. Um, uh, my school doesn't allow for the donors choose that kind of thing. Our school doesn't allow for it. We can't use that. But if you can use things like that, finding small community groups who will do funding for small projects and things like that. That's always great too. So any way you can find money here, there, everywhere for your program, I know that we all need it. Um, I've it's very rare to find like a fully funded library that's just getting everything they need taken care of. I'm blessed with what I get from my district, but I'm very happy that I'm able to get the additional funding to take care of a lot of the projects that me and my kids want to do with the grant funding and funding from other partners and such. So always be on the lookout for those as well. Um, yeah, so here's my information. I am on all of the social medias with this DS Hensley EDU. Um, or if you just want to email me, I am again dshensley@gmail.com, or you can email my TASL email if you have association specific questions. If you want to do New Jersey specific stuff, and how'd you pronounce it when you did the NJASL?
We do it as NJSL.
And JSL, that's a lot better than the alternative. Um, so if you want to talk Tassel and JSL, like discussions and doing stuff together, email me there. I would love to see that happen too. But if there are any questions from the audience, I'll be glad to take those either, and you can come off mute or do it in the chat.
While other folks are maybe gathering their thoughts, one of the questions I had was, and you kind of answered this a little bit in term, let me ask the question, and then you'll know that you answered some of it. You said that you fail at a lot at some of your grants, and I imagine that's, although not pleasant, there's probably a good learning aspect to that too, that you can kind of reflect on it. And you were saying doing follow-ups is a brilliant idea, probably not something I would have thought of before. Is there anything else you feel like you have sort of noticed, or like trends or patterns that you've come across in looking at things that didn't work as well?
I think that I've done it long enough to the point to where I know what I've messed up at. Like if they send me the email that like I didn't get it, like it'll click, like I know why I didn't get it. It's because I was weak in this area. Because sometimes like there's just so much going on and there's deadlines and you just submit one because you got to get it in. And I know that I didn't get a part strong as I wanted it to. So that always sucks because it lives in the back of my mind forever that like could have had that money if you just would have, not slept that night or whatever it would be. Um, but no, I would say doing that follow up with the grantor is the most beneficial thing that I've found is them just being able to tell you, hey, here's what it was.
Hi, good evening.
Hey,
Hi, my name is Kim. I am a third year library media specialist in a public school in Jersey City. So I'm still fairly new, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for the information tonight. I am interested in grant writing for my school. My library was closed down for like it was idle for about 8 years
hmm,
before I came in, and it was used as storage room. And we just need to get some old furniture out, and we need a whole new renovation. So, um, so all of the information that you presented tonight, I came on a little later, a little late, but I appreciate it. I'm going to look into it. Just real quick, do you have any tips on? I have a very traditional principal, and she does everything by the book. If I present to her, then I'm thinking about grant writing. Oh, I don't know if that's approved by the district.
mhm.
Maybe you shouldn't do that. Any tips on how to kind of break her in? Because I know these schools, these other librarians in my district are doing it,
Yeah.
and their principal is open to it, but she's very nervous about everything. And and everything has to be, oh, district approved, or I don't
Mhm.
want to try it unless the district say we have to do it, something like that.
Right.
So just any tips I'll take.
Yeah. So have you talked to the librarians in the other schools in your district who are able to write grants?
Well, I know that a lot of them, um they have the donors choose,
Mm,
and that's all they bring up a lot. Do donors choose? Do donors choose? So I'm assuming the district is very in favor of donors choose, but there's so many other grants out there that you've talked about that I've seen, and I'm like, I want to try not just donor choose. I want to try other things too, you
yeah,
know. But I guess I would just have to start with them too, and
right.
see how they broke it down to their principal, and hopefully I can do the same magic on my principal.
Yeah, and you want to help them see the benefit of it, that everyone gets something good out of it if you get the money. Like it helps the budget, it helps you being able to provide better programming. We know from research that shows that the better the staffed and funded the library, then the better the school scores are. Like we know from everything that we see that if you get funding for to make your library program more robust, that
Right.
usually beneficial for the whole building. So
Okay.
I think if you came equipped with saying that, the other schools are doing it in this way or whatever, but also it helps the whole school. Like if I'm
Right.
able to get money to be able to revitalize the space, it
Right.
doesn't have to come out of the general fund. It doesn't have to come out. It doesn't have to take from someone else. We can still keep funding everything else happening in the school that's great. Because you don't want them to feel like you're attacking them in their decisions. You don't want them
Right.
to feel like that you want to take away from someone else in the budget.
Hmm.
So this is supplementary to what is happening in the school. So the great decisions that they're making, this is a supplement to that to make the school even better.
Okay. Thank you for that information. And again, I thank you for the information tonight. Very helpful. And again, I apologize for coming on late, but I got a world of information the time that I was on here.
Yeah, great. And Steve told me that this was recorded, so it'll be on the NJSOL YouTube page, so you can go back and watch any part that you might have missed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You had said too that you tend to do some research into the places you're applying for your grants so that you can kind of tailor your application to kind of hit the main points.
Yeah.
Do you tend to start from like a basic template? Like, do you sort of have some key points that you tend to recycle, for use of a better word?
Um, Not necessarily in the narrative. I mean, outside of like talking about my community, like I have like a pre-written talking about like Elizabethton is in the seat of Carter County, Tennessee. It has 14,000 residents, like that kind of stuff. I have pre-written because it's the same every time, right? But for my actual narrative of what's going to happen, like that changes. And that because I tailor make that for what whoever the grantor is. So if I'm writing a grant to Lockheed Martin, then I'm gonna not the wild. Then I would look at their vision, mission. I'd look how they write their stuff and try to copy their style of writing. So I'm using their language to talk to them. Um,
Do you also sort of try and target the potential project to the donor as well? So like
yeah.
Lockheed Martin, you might be looking more at like makerspace, STEM
Mhm.
sort of project.
Yeah. Because if I can tie it to their benefit in any way, then that's what I'm doing.
Right.
So if I need like a technology grant, then I'm going to look and see what Samsung has available, and then talk to them about the future, like students who are the future workforce in technology. Through these projects, they would get, these types of skills. So that's the way I try to individualize it for whoever it is.
You had said you've done several grants for like Walmart and Lowe's. I'm just curious, like what is your focus there? Like I Lowe's, I'm
Yeah.
thinking like home repair stuff, like we're gonna repaint the library. Like I'm
Yeah. So whenever I wrote the Lowe's one, I wrote it with a middle school teacher in my like the middle school for my district. I wrote it with her to get an outdoor classroom built. So
oh,
that wasn't like in the library. I just used like my grant writing to get that. But I was actually I was giving this presentation for a district a couple weeks ago, and they told me about how they got a Lowe's grant to get like a tree in an elementary middle library. They got like a wooden tree built for kids to be able to sit under for reading time. Like
uh,
they got Lowe's to come and build that for them. So like they built the tree and the seating around it and all that stuff. So if you get like the Big Lows grant, like their employees come and build it all for you.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That's
So
pretty
like our outdoor classroom, the way it got built, their employees came and worked with the kids to build the whole thing.
That's awesome. Huh. Hmm. Well, now I got more things to think about. Hmm. That's cool. Well, I don't want to monopolize the whole question answer period here. I don't know if Kim or I think it's Maureen have any other questions they want to toss out. Open the floor. I have a feeling that
I'm good. I'm great. Thank you so much.
we're going to have a lot of people tuning in to view this recording because there's so many great things in here. I know I'm going to be hitting lots of those links as when I get the chance to because there's so much great stuff out there. Huh. Well, Dustin, I cannot thank you enough for taking your time and coming to share your knowledge and your resources and just helping us all kind of think a little bit about ways we can serve our students beyond the resources we might have on hand. This is really outstanding. So thank you so much.
Yeah, not a problem. It's always love sharing.
All right, I'm going to stop our recording here. Yeah.